Arthur has been working with me to get this show done, and frankly, I want a good show. Now, we need to have Mike Crawshaw. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Barry.
Oh, thank goodness. You don't know how happy I am to hear that. Mike, I'm very pleased that you're on the show. Look, a very close friend of both of ours. Well, his name is Bob. I'm not sure he wants his last name, really, but he recommended your point of view. You are a contributor to Gates of Vienna. What is that?
Gates of Vienna is a blog site which basically is amongst one of the leading counter-jihad sites in certainly the US, but it has a slant that also crosses over into Europe and is very pro-Israel as well. So any reader of the site is going to get educated into how counter-jihad works in the US, in Europe, and in where I'm sitting now. I'm sitting in the city of Sderot in Israel. This is
by the way, the book is a victim of the Gaza pullout. You get rockets constantly.
That's right. We had 4 last week. It's one of the places where we are on the front line against the so-called religion of peace that fires missiles with 40 pounds of explosive in the tip, mixed with nails and ball bearings and rat poison. Rat poison makes people bleed out. So, these are nice neighbours that we have.
Well, you didn't have them previous to the Gaza pullout. And by the way, I fought it. Just so you know, I fought it. Didn't do any good, but I fought it.
Well, I mean, the Gaza pullout was a huge betrayal of the state of Israel. The promise was that if we pulled out of Gaza, there would be peace. We pulled out of Gaza.
I mean, were you here when the pullout took place?
No, I wasn't in place then. We made Aliyah in 2008, but we were very aware of what we were coming into. We do charity work here in Sderot, doing food parcels for. Sderot is now a very poor city because we've had 12 years of constant bombardment, and of course a lot of the jobs have left the area, you might say. So there's a huge rate of unemployment in the city. I mean, I tend to have to work in Europe for 6 to 8 months of the year in order to earn enough money for us to live in Sderot, because there's just no work locally.
All right, folks, let's put it in terms of, I wrote a book called Bye Bye Gaza, predicting just about this, okay? Oh, Mike, let's go on. You're talking about a counter-jihad website. Tell people how to get to Gates of Vienna and to read you, first of all.
Right. Well, if anybody can get me on the internet, it's, if I get it right, it's www.gatesofvienna.net. And if you pull down the authors tab under MC, you'll get all my works that I've published there since 2012. What happened was that we'd not been in Sderot very long when I was in contact by email with the proprietors of the site, and we happened to be having a dialogue about anti-Israel bias on the BBC. And Dimfner, one of the owners of the site, said, "Do you really live in Sderot?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Write us a piece about what it's like being in Sderot when the missiles are coming in." So my first piece, which is still up there on the site, was describing what it was like to be in the warehouse where we distribute the food when the alarms go off, and the reactions of various people on the team, sort of thing, from the lady who went and hid in the lavatories to her husband who immediately went outside to see if he could see any of the rocket trails. So, I mean, people have to understand that we may be Jews and we may be under fire, but we're actually people, as Shakespeare used to say, "Do we not bleed?"
Has Shakespeare been lately?
I haven't met him lately. He sort of died a few years ago. But if you read Merchant of Venice, the baddie guy there, Shylock, makes a fascinating speech, which is so relevant today to how things are.
Yeah. Oh, okay. First of all, I want my listeners to know that Mike brings a different culture into Sderot. I'm not saying irrelevant, but it's different. Now, as for the Merchant of Venice, all right, you've got yourself a situation in Sderot, which is really a major human tragedy. Where's it going to lead? How long can you withstand this?
Look, it's been put to me.
The danger. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's been put to me that we're in a permanent state of not post-traumatic stress disorder, current traumatic stress disorder. But you see, it's like London in the Blitz. I mean, my mother lived through the city of Portsmouth, which was blitzed in 1940. She only started talking about it 2 or 3 years ago. And the first night when the bombs came down, it's something that stays with people. It doesn't ever really go away. And before we don't have alarms in the normal sense because we only get 15 seconds warning here. But there's a click as the amplifiers come on and the speaker system says Seva Adom, Seva Adom. But it's that click we all listen to. And it's what we all talk about is when that click goes, we cringe because we know that it could be just about to happen. And then sometimes you wait the 15 seconds and there's nothing. Last week, it was Shabbat was coming in, and we were we had Shabbat dinner with friends, and we were just about to leave to come back to our house, and there it went, click, Seva Adom, Seva Adom, and then about 12 seconds later, 2 explosions. Now, they didn't hit anywhere.
Anyone hurt?
No, these two, most of the missiles hit empty space.
Boy, you're lucky. Better shot.
But last year, we had about 5 hits in the city. Anybody going to the Gates of Vienna website can see some photographs we have of some near misses, and the missiles buzz as they go over you, and you know, um, and then I was outside once, and one was intercepted by the Iron Dome, and the next thing I know, there's shrapnel buzzing as it passes me because it's obviously spinning quite fast, and it whines as it goes past you. And of course, if it hits you, you get injured. And I think there's a memorial up the road in the middle of a roundabout. There's been about 35 deaths from this over the years, several of them young children, because, of course...
But saying children will remember their youth. That's what you're saying? They'll never forget.
Oh, no, they will never forget these things coming... Well, I'm over 60 and I don't forget them. I had a life in the military. I served in Northern Ireland. I've been involved in about a dozen bombs before I ever got near Israel. The first one was in 1966 in Singapore, when there was a bit of a fracas going on there. My father had been sent out because of this, what we called the Indonesian confrontation. And they blew up a bank. Sorry?
You're talking Sukarno?
That's the one. Suharto, Sukarno. They wanted to spread their...
I remember when I was growing up, boy, you brought up that's 2 generations old already.
Yeah, that's right. And then, as I say, I served myself in the military, and I was involved in several car bombs in Londonderry, Northern Ireland. Yeah, I was in the Edgware Road when the bombs went off at the Edgware Road tube station. I
remember Londonderry as well.
Yeah.
That's 1 generation ago at least. Like you were involved in history.
Yeah. So I suppose I'm a bit battle-hardened compared to the average civilian in the street. We have a good friend, David, who was actually a stretcher bearer when the Jordanians started shelling Jerusalem in '67. And, funnily enough, he was asked by the police to take shelter when the alarms went off here, because it's a good example to the children. But, it's not like my parents went through in the Blitz, and it's not really like the guys who are in a shooting war get when you've got shells landing all around you. But this is a civilian population.
It's not like your government did anything to protect you, not with the pull-up from Gaza and not since. And you have to ask why.
Well, we notice here that nothing happens until Tel Aviv gets threatened. Missiles coming into Siderot, it doesn't even go outside of the local area of the Negev. It's not reported internationally at all. And each one of these, you've got to understand, is a war crime. So next time you hear about war crimes, you've got to understand that every one of these missiles shot at civilian populations is a war crime, and the world ignores it.
Boy, do you believe that? My goodness. All right. I'm glad you believe that. It's a different court of law that we're talking about. Of course, they're not war crimes. They are war incidents to the most of the world.
Yeah, and if if Israeli soldiers were to fire missiles into civilian areas, then they would be indicted. But these jihad soldiers can do anything here in Israel. All these stabbings, these are war crimes. These have been initiated, so we're told, by the Palestinian Authority, that Mahmoud Abbas is sitting there encouraging his people to go out and stab Israelis or drive their cars on them.
Abbas,
Yes.
he really doesn't have influence in Gaza, does he?
No, but particularly the stabbings in Jerusalem. I mean,
I got it. The mess, and you're not going to sort out the mess, are you?
No, to me,
took over the Gaza part of the Palestinian Authority. In theory, anyways, Abbas has no say, but that's just a theory.
Well, again, Hamas, terrorist organization, vowed to kill every last Israeli, in fact, every last Jew in the world. And the world, half of Europe is donating money to them. These guys, their main source of income is the EU and the Americas. So, this is a problem that is sponsored by our own government, so to speak. My government,
there's a deep understanding that you have and that you write about. It's not so to speak. Look, in fact, the Israeli government has been very, very allied with people who really, really don't like Jews. And it's been going on for a whole long time.
Look, I tend to see Israel as a ghetto, right? The Nazis in Germany used to round up the Jews, put them into ghettos, and then liquidate the ghetto. Anyone who's seen Schindler's List, the film, will understand the process, how it works.
We can, without seeing Schindler's List, know what happened in the 40s.
Yeah, well, think of that on a national scale, where the Jews are being collected into one country, and then you empower their worst enemies just to the south and the east of us in Tehran. You give them...
Who did the empowering.
Yes.
That's what my book, Bye Bye Gaza, is about. What?
Yeah. And that nuke, when it comes over, I'm not saying if it comes over, I'm saying when it comes over, that will be a nuke paid for by the taxpayers of the USA and the EU. Not voluntarily, right? I'm sure that most of the taxpayers in Europe and the US don't want their money going to Tehran to build nuclear weapons. But something happens in the Beltway. Yeah.
I say this is a different war. Gaza is shelling Sderot. I don't think it's necessarily out of Iran. To tell you the...
Well, some of the missiles that go up the coast towards Tel Aviv are Iranian missiles. But, we have just empowered the Ayatollahs in Tehran to go nuclear. And that's crazy.
Oh, Mike. That's such a side issue piece of nonsense. You've got enough problems without worrying about... Listen, if a nuke goes off in Israel, it hits many, many Arabs. It's way more complicated than Iran going nuclear. You've got yourself a war in Sderot. You can't go out of your door without knowing when red alert hits.
Hmm. But, Barry, the Qassams are a huge annoyance, but statistically they're not going to kill me, right? But
you're right.
Right, but a
Yeah.
nuke coming in from Iran, that's going to hurt me.
Well, as I say, you've got plenty of headaches.
Oh yes, oh yes. But life goes on, and we refuse to be driven out of our homes here. I've been asked several times, well, why don't I move up north? Well, the whole object of the exercise is to make me move up north, is to make me leave Sderot. That's why they're sending the missiles over. So we stay here.
I didn't. My life was almost lost. It was foolishly lost. And I left. I got to tell you, I feel a lot safer where I am than where I was in Israel.
I can understand that, but one of the reasons we made Aliyah is because I don't think Europe is now safe. I can't guarantee that couldn't guarantee to bring up a family safely in Europe. And I spend a lot of time in Europe, but I wouldn't want a family there now. I think my family is safer here in Israel than certainly in Europe. And of course,
you want to bet I'm worried sick about another Holocaust, and it's brewing.
It's brewing, yeah. In just about every Western European country now.
In about Israel and Israel's territories, it's brewing.
Yeah.
I've been in Israel 20 years existence, tops.
Yeah, but I mean, I think personally.
Let's face it, you are a rational guy,
Yeah.
and you moved to Israel for the reasons I moved there 40 odd years ago. The same idealism, but we got stabbed in the back, and by our own government. That's the problem.
It's one of the problems, but Israel is fighting far harder against it than Europe is. And my feeling is that in Europe we could be rounded up. Or certainly Marshall
could be up.
Yep. I don't think there's much future for bringing up Jewish families in Europe.
That's
US,
gone. The Jews are gone from there. That's gone.
Yeah.
Mike, we're having a great conversation. I'm so glad you came on the show. I really am. But we have to take 3 minutes off for commercials, and we're going to the background. We're going to dive into the Second World War and all the research you've been doing. Folks, my guest is Mike Crawshaw, and he's a very smart guest. And we're going to come to some consensus, whether we...
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Crawshaw, a few my book. And prevent Israel from entering what is now in. Okay, my books. Thank you, David. Okay, first of all, my books are all at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. Look up Bye Bye Gaza. All right. You'll like that one. And David Salmon, thank you for maintaining my website, barrychamish.com. One quick plug for Gates of Vienna, Mike.
Okay, if you are interested in a more intellectual view of what's going on in the counter-jihad movement in the US and across Europe and the rest of the world, then Gates of Vienna is probably worth looking up. The name comes from basically 350 years ago, the Ottoman Empire, the previous caliphate, not this current caliphate, the previous caliphate, got as far as Vienna, i.e. halfway into the current Austria, having conquered the whole of Hungary, bits of what
I take it their reason was not to hear a good symphony.
They were turned back they laid siege to Vienna in Europe, one of the main cities in Vienna, and that Vienna was rescued by the Polish king, Jan Sobieski III, who with 10,000 men defeated an Ottoman army of about 150,000. We turned them back, and we can still turn them back. This war that we are in with Islam is different. It's a war of Trojan horses. Our countries are being infiltrated by the armies of this new caliphate, and at some stage it's going to overflow. But we have to wake the people up. And the Gates of Vienna is about waking people up to the threat that Islam poses. It's not a religion of peace. It is an organization, a political and religious organization that wishes to dominate the world. And it's up to us to read about it and to get to understand exactly the threat to our countries that is posed by these guys with their black flags and their knives and their machine guns.
So what are the real implications of Islam let loose in Western societies? What's coming up?
Well, we can expect more of the Paris attacks. There'll be the targeted attack, like the attack on Charlie Hebdo, and then there will be the random attacks like we've just seen in Paris, where they just walk into a bar or a restaurant or a concert hall and just start letting loose with automatic weapons. That there is nothing that we can do much about that. There's nothing that the police can do to protect us except try and keep these guys out of our countries. And that is what is not happening. We, for some strange reason, particularly the European leaders, but certain leaders in the US as well, are saying, we must take these people in. We must give them a home amongst us. Now, if 95% of them are peaceful people, there's 5% of them that want to make war against us. They want us to live under their Sharia law. This is Sharia law that says that all women are second-class citizens. All unbelievers are second-class citizens. And do we want that? The answer is no.
Now this is you, okay? You write mainly, this is your description about the linkages between the political left, far left, Nazism, and Islamofascism. I don't see the linkages.
Right. Okay.
What are...
Right.
The link between the left and Nazis
you know what Nazi stands for? It stands for National Socialism.
All right.
When Hitler and Goering started the Deutsche Arbeitsparty, which means the German Workers' Party, they were a communist party. It was decided that since they were in competition in the streets for support of German workers, that they would change slightly their policy. So instead of being like Lenin is an international socialist, they became national socialists. And the difference between communism and national socialism is paper thin. It is a squabble over whether whether communism should break down the national barriers or support the national barriers. That's the only difference between them. In communism,
bloody war. It's not like they were friends. All right, no. They went to war. 30, 40 million died in this war.
Yes, but that, I mean, that it was a war between two dictators who were squabbling over power spheres, right? It wasn't a war of doctrine. The doctrines were actually the same: concentration camps, totalitarian government. There was a slight difference that in communism, the workers were supposed to own the means of production, which meant that the state controlled it, and the Nazis kept the means of production in private hands, but they controlled every nut and bolt produced in the country. Tell me there's a difference. Right? The effect is exactly the same. There's for anyone interested, there's a video on the internet called The Soviet Story. You'd have to Google it, but it's a fantastic documentary. It was made in the Baltic states, who suffered under both Nazism and Sovietism, and they make the point that these two organizations were 95% the same. And actually what you get is a battle between the elites that cost the world millions and millions of casualties.
Okay, I'm doing my best to follow. I still say the Germans, the Nazis, viewed the Russians as inferior genes. They view them as... Okay.
Yeah, well, they didn't like the Slavic races, and the Slavs suffered almost as many casualties in the Holocaust as the Jews did. The Jews were regarded as more dangerous by the Nazis. But
it wasn't even close percentage-wise. The Jews were 95% slaughtered. The Slavs lost a third. There
were 11 to 12 million casualties of the Holocaust, of which about 6 million were Jewish. The other 5 million were mainly Polish Catholic Christians, who were not necessarily put through the death camp system, but they died in slave labor camps.
All right. Again, there's no comparison. We got slaughtered down to the last man.
Look, my family lost about 50 members in, this is in Lithuania and the Russian Pale of Settlement. You got the wedding photographs from grandparents who got married in 1939, couldn't be delivered. And after the war, there was no one to deliver them to.
I have a similar story. Right. We have got ourselves a history. The problem is, I'll tell you what the problem is. When Rabin got murdered, I started investigating who did it. And this labor Zionism, it was devastating for the Jews. Devastating.
Yes, well, some of these guys were traitors, and there's 600 and something Hungarian Jews who should never have got to the death camps, because there was a move afoot to buy them and give them freedom, but authorities who should have known better, your Labour Zionists, made sure that they went to the death camps. There are some very dirty hands around.
That's Kastner dressing up like
Kastner, yeah, exactly. And that should have worked, but the guys got kidnapped on the way.
You're right. All right, and I know this, and you know this. We were shipped to our death by the leaders who took over Israel, labor Zionism. That's the problem.
And it's still a problem. Right? It's still a problem, Barry. And if we let them, these guys will sell us out again. In a way, that's what happened in Gaza. We were sold out by the same people, the same elite groups.
No joking. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be interrupting. You're absolutely right, and I agree with everything.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, history is history. We can have opinions on it, but it doesn't change the truth. There's only one truth. We dig to try and find that truth. And, as you and I have sort of exchanged in writing, just about everything that I was taught at school was a lie.
Yep. A myth.
Yes. We've been sold a bunch of fairy tales. And this latest...
a history that isn't the truth. So what are we going to do about it? It's so depressing.
Look, I would say to people, dig, look for the truth, right? Because it's the truth that sets us free. And then that's in the New Testament, but I think it applies to the whole of the Bible, the whole of Tanakh. That if we seek the truth,
century, and listen. You know about the Sabbateans. I'll bet you anything you know about them. You know that they took over Judaism. You're aware of this, right?
Yep.
Jacob Frank and Shabtai Tzvi, you're aware that Judaism was taken over by people who didn't have our interests at heart. I'm being so kind.
Look, in a way, Jonathan Zakkai redefined Judaism after the temple was destroyed. And he created a system that had no checks and balances in it. And that, I think, has become problematic in latter days. But I think we can get out of that because, in the end, God created everything that's around us in 6 days, and he looked back at it and he said it was Tov Meod, it was perfect. And that
Sabbateanism. It has nothing to do with Jews being rounded up into ghettos and slaughtered. This is also a myth. Fine. That was a good thing to build our history on. We were taken over.
Okay. I'm not going to dispute that, right? But Yah has not been taken over. He's still there.
Is he?
Right? He's still the creator.
Not helping my family. My
Yes,
father had 11 brothers and sisters. 9 of them were slaughtered in the Holocaust. I lost my whole European family.
Yes, and it's hard to live with, of course.
No joking.
And to be continuously targeted. I read that the European Union is forcing the labeling of Jewish products from Judea and Samaria, and I think I could have read the same headline in Germany in 1934. When Germans were being asked not to buy Jewish products, and they were forcing people to put Stars of David on Jewish products. Tell me there's a difference.
I get it. Look, there's a political difference. We now have our own state. All right?
Yep.
Look, I'm going to give you a quote from your writing, and you gotta You have got to explain this. Now, here's you. In 1943, after the Stalingrad defeat, Bormann, that is, well, you explain who Bormann was running Israel while Hitler was losing the war. Bormann was stripping Germany of was stripping Germany of money, technology, and people, transporting to the Americas a clandestine Fourth Reich, which is wielding so much influence today by pretending to be the Jewish Zionist bankster clique. Now that is some statement, and I want you to explain that.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Okay. The basis of this is a book, or several books, written in the mid-50s. The books started to posit basically that very, very senior Nazis, including Adolf, got out of the collapsing Germany in 1945.
Yeah.
Now, in 1943, the Russians surrounded Field Marshal Paulus and his Sixth Army, and the Germans lost something in the region of 1.5 million fighting men in the course of that engagement, which meant that that's the point at which the war was lost. Now, the Allies were insisting on a total surrender, an unconditional surrender, and this was totally unacceptable to certainly the German elites, because they might have negotiated another armistice at that point, but we weren't going to fall for it again. We got fooled, if you like, in 1918. We weren't going to be fooled again in 1943, 44, 45. So this became a struggle to the end. Now, most senior Germans knew the moment that the retreat from Stalingrad started that the war was lost, because the USA, with its huge capacity, was coming in on the side of the Allies, and the USA alone could supply all the needs of the Allies. And so the logistic problems for the Germans stopped working. And from that point on, they were struggling. The Russians were building 800 tanks a week. The Germans were building 400 tanks a month. The figures didn't, and the Russian tanks were good tanks as well. They're T-34s, which was possibly the finest tank built in the 40s.
They were screwed. They were losing the war. Where is this leading? You're telling me that Bormann was effectively stripping Germany of its technology, people, and money, and that's a big jump.
Okay. A French spy reported a meeting in Strasbourg where Bormann basically addressed all the major industrialists and bankers in Germany and instructed them to asset strip their organizations and to filter the money through Switzerland and other European banking nations, with the target of getting it into German corporations in Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil first off, and then a lot of this eventually ended up...
That's another thing we've gone over in this show. We've got to have you back, by the way. We're actually blending. Oh, that's paperclip. Now, where is the Jewish Zionist bankster clique in all this equation?
Okay. As most of us know, there are an awful lot of people who believe that the the Jews control the world. This document, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, is a pernicious document. It was actually written around about 1860 in Russia for the SRs.
You got this wrong. It was written in France in the late 1830s. You got this wrong.
That was the novel on which the actual document was based, right? So yeah, it goes back to 1930s, but that was a novel. 1830s. Slip of the tongue there. And yes, you're right. There was a novel written about that time, which was then taken into by the Socialist Revolutionary Party in Russia, which was then captured by the Okhrana, the Tsar's secret police, who actually changed the document to make it point to Jews and Jewish bankers and published it. And this thing went viral at the time, and is still being published, particularly in the Middle East in Arabic.
Applied to Bormann and Fourth Reich that he formed in America. I'm missing this.
Okay, it's a fantastic red herring for them because they can point to the world being influenced by the Jewish bankers. And okay, some of the bankers might be Jewish, but the mass of them are non-Jewish. And so they have managed to get millions of people believing that this is a Jewish conspiracy, when in fact it's the exact opposite. All this money that was released from the Third Reich has been used to build basically a Fourth Reich, which is not particularly Germanic.
Where are the Jewish banks for Creek and all this?
Yes, well, you know, it certainly supports a bankster clique, a new world order, if you like, but it's not Jews, or you know, it's not like the likes of you and me that are behind it. You know, most of us don't know where our next couple of bucks is coming from.
Oh, God. Mike, we just got started, and I just got you going. We'll have you back. And
Okay.
thanks, Bob, for suggesting you. You were a great guest. I won't lose you. This is Barry Chamish. We come back in 7 minutes, and we've got Roger Stone on for the next hour. Mike, terrific show.
Thank you, Barry. Talk to you soon.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.